Okay, this is the first feedback I'm giving you through screen recording, and this is on the question we did in class on the magazine cover, and the question was, how does a magazine cover try to appeal to its audience? So I'll look through the paragraphs you wrote on OneNote, and we'll be going in alphabetical order of first name. So if we start with Bradley's, his response was, the magazine cover tries to convince people to buy their magazine. They do this by showing the littlest things to biggest. So right here where Brad's put things, he could have perhaps used a more specific word such as images or characters to show exactly what he's talking about. He then goes on to talk about, at the top of the cover, they have a logo saying Golden Joystick Presents, and gives a bit of history about Golden Joystick being a Games Award company. He talked a little bit about how gamers may have some awareness of this company, and we could have then talked about how that would draw gamers into buying this magazine because they've heard of the company. Brad does go off on a bit of a tangent here, starting to talk about Game of the Year editions and giving a bit more information about the gaming culture rather than staying focused to the question. He brings it back here, saying that gamers will know who Golden Joystick are. But then again on this final sentence he starts talking about how they might know some of the games on the front cover could win an award, and that might make people go and watch the awards show. Now although that might be true, it's not answering the question, which is focused on the magazine. Alright, let's move on to Charles. Okay, so a slightly shorter paragraph here, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's focused. So he jumps straight in, saying the magazine uses a diverse range of characters, which may encourage the readers to buy the magazine. So a sensible assertion there, and he's being specific, talking about characters and how they might encourage the reader. They may have a few characters from different games, so it can relate to a lot of people, and he gives a specific example of Mario. Here it's not quite clear what he's saying. It is a game, perhaps a well-known game, and so a lot of people would know that. So that's a good start, but you could have then talked about why that would be effective to use well-known game characters. We will move on to Harvey now. Okay, so Harvey begins by talking about the different sized game characters, the larger images, and gives a specific example of Tracer from Overwatch being bigger than the other characters because it's a popular game at the time the magazine comes out, so he's thinking about the reasons behind why they've done that. He's then bringing it back to the question, saying this may encourage the readers to buy this magazine, so directly relating to the question, because the reader may like the characters on the front. Even though not every game character is on there, it may still attract others, so wrong word there, others that should be, to still buy this magazine because they may want to play some different games. And he's bringing it back to the question again, saying why this is effective, because people who like the games on the front cover may buy this to read more about the games they like, and others might buy it to find out about some new games. So very sensible. He could have maybe included the even though sentence to add a counterpoint there, but we're certainly on the right lines with this Peter paragraph. Jack wasn't. Jack's not in this class anymore, so we're on to Lachlan. Okay, Lachlan didn't complete his on OneNote because he did it on his laptop, so we can't get feedback on that. And is Matthew's on here? Okay, so Matthew also must have completed this either in his book. Oh no, there's two Matthews, perhaps that's why. Although it still doesn't seem that he did it on here. Oh, where it was under quizzes. Okay, so here's Matt's Peter paragraph. So a simple sentence to begin here, straight into it. The magazine uses lots of large pictures of characters from popular games. Straight away Matt could have improved this by giving a specific example of a character which has been used. He is, however, considering the impact of this choice. This may encourage a reader to purchase the magazine because they might see a game character they know and love, even though they are shadowed by the larger pictures of characters. So that's a very sensible point. They may buy it because they like the characters already. This idea of them being shadowed by the larger pictures perhaps doesn't really add to the point about why that's an effective choice. So unless that point was developed further, it may not be worth including it there. This is effective as it is invoking memories that the reader had with this character while playing that game. So thinking about the impact on the reader is again adding well to this Peter paragraph. And we do have a focus on encourage a reader to purchase a magazine, so just a bit more detail on who the characters are might have added to that. We also have the start of the next paragraph, the large font for the number 100, again a sensible thing to notice, and obviously that would need developing further as to why that's effective. Let's move on to Matthew McCarthy. And his is under quizzes as well, so he's included the title. Always helpful to write out the title so that you're constantly referring back to it. So we have the magazine uses bright colours in the background by including the colours red, white and yellow. So a point to begin, and specific colours mentioned as well, although perhaps could have focused on a single colour. So the reader may be attracted by the bright colours, and even though they may not like the colours used and want colours that are more calming instead of aggressive colours. So here quite a lot of trust placed in the idea that colours might attract the reader to buy the magazine, and that may not necessarily be fully accurate. If you think about have you ever bought something just because you really like the colours of it, particularly if it was a book or a magazine or even a game. The colours might draw you in, but might not actually persuade you to actually buy it. However, Matthew goes on to say that the bright colours are effective because a lot of people like action, and red is a colour which represents anger and action. So once he starts focusing on specifically the colour red, he's adding more details and it's becoming a stronger Peter paragraph. He's also saying how this links back to video game players, because most games have a lot of action and violence, which would encourage video game players even more to buy the magazine. So it's a sort of action-packed cover, relates to action video games, so that might encourage the target audience. Matthew's then moved on to a second paragraph. The magazine uses bold in the text by including big fonts in the middle of the magazine. This may encourage the reader to buy the magazine. So good use of the word may there in both paragraphs. You can never say anything for certain when you're analysing like this, but you can speculate and use words like may and might. The reader may get excited by the big fonts used. So again, big fonts aren't necessarily that exciting, but there might be other reasons they've been used. Matthew's trying to use the even though here, which is working to some degree, even though the reader may be looking for more detail in the title rather than big fonts. So it is true they've made some words really big and maybe not included as much detail as they could have done. But Matthew could have focused a little more on what impact those big fonts actually have on the reader. Okay, Rowan wasn't here today. Let's look at Sam's. And which section is under. So just be aware, any work we do in class, if you put it under class notes, and it'll be easier for me to find. Okay, so it looks like Sam may have done his either on Word or in his book. So we'll move on to Sam Speller. Okay, and here's Sam's under handout. So again, if I could go under class notes. And we've got two paragraphs here. The magazine uses characters, so there's our terminology in the Peter paragraph, by including old and new pictures from games. This may encourage readers to buy the magazine because it attracts older and younger people, as it all has a game they either played in childhood or a game that's just come out and they want to find out how good it is. So we're following the model paragraph well here. We've made a point. Sam is using terminology by talking about the characters specifically rather than just saying perhaps things. Then he's saying this may encourage the readers by a magazine as it attracts the older and young people, so talking about the impact, how it could attract people of any age. And then he's even using the even though, so even though pictures may be from games they may not like, this is effective because it may make people judge the whole magazine, thinking more of the games are bad before reading it. So not quite sure about this last bit, how thinking the games is bad would make it more effective, but up until that point we're on a strong paragraph here. Looking at the second paragraph, the magazine uses big writing, so the terminology could be improved there. Perhaps big fonts might have been more appropriate. This may encourage the reader to look at the magazine on first glance, so drawing them in. And it says 100, so he's given the quote there, that's the evidence in the Peter paragraph. Then he goes on to talk about adding the company name who made it to make the reader think there are serious views and underlining the right now. So we've actually got 3 different aspects of the magazine cover which Sam has picked up on here: the underlining, the company name, the Golden Joysticks name, and the large font or the big writing. When you're writing Peter paragraphs, focus on a single aspect of what you're analysing, a single element of it, and your paragraphs will be more effective and more focused. And then he starts to talk about the price, so again trying to use the even though, but this could tie in better to the rest of the paragraph. Okay, that's my first bit of spoken feedback. If you could reply to me by email, just let me know how this sort of feedback worked for you, if it was useful, if you could follow it, or any tips you have which might help me to improve the feedback I give to you. That would be appreciated.